Namaste, Srimatre Namaha. Post-lunch session needs some energy, which is why we are going to invoke Shakti through the Viranganas of India. We might have forgotten most of them, but that brings me back to the whole continuum of the festival we have been a part of, Nandini and Shefali ji. So, we've learnt about our history, we've, learnt about the Purushartha, the whole civilizational, the structure of our society, and those 3 scintillating sessions about Operation Sindoor, and I'll never forget the kid who asked what we can do as citizens. Right? That is such a right way to think about it. We are sure that our future is secure when, the Gen Z thinks like that. Right? So responsibly. And that brings me back, I really want your opening remarks as to become responsible citizens and to become leaders of tomorrow, Gen Z and especially women, they need the right role models. So before we go back to the past, let's have a bit of a focus on the present as to, where we stand with respect to having the role models for today's Gen Z women and also men. Hello. So how do you see the Gen Z developing their role models? Right?
That's a very interesting question. I see a lot of Gen Z people here. So whenever I go to colleges and I have a talk with the students, particularly to women's colleges, I usually show them 2 pictures. One is a woman in a business suit having a computer and typing on that computer. And the other picture is of a woman in a sari with flowers in her hair with the kumkum and everything. And I show them these pictures and I ask them, who out of these pictures do you think is more quote-unquote modern? Okay, if I have to ask you the same question, a woman in a business suit with a computer and a woman in a sari in flowers in her hair and sindoor and all that. If I ask you kids, who would be more modern? Can anybody answer? Pardon me? Woman on the computer. Yeah, that's the most common answer I get. Then I tell the audience the identity of those women. The woman in a suit and a computer is just a model for a computer class somewhere. She doesn't have any great achievements to her name, whereas the woman in a sari with flowers in her hair is Tessie Thomas, the woman scientist from ISRO who was behind the Chandrayaan project. And then I ask them, now you tell me, who do you think is more modern? So then they willy-nilly come to the point and say, oh, the scientist. See, the whole point is, modernity is not in your clothes. Modernity is here. It's not here. You can be modern. You can wear a madisar, rock it, and still be modern or will be modern. And you can wear a miniskirt and you still can have the most regressive values and be perceived only as a showpiece for men, a victim of patriarchy. So one thing I want all the young people, the Gen Z particularly who are here, to understand is that tradition is not just in your clothes, it's in your thoughts. Conservativeness is also in your thoughts, and modernity, what you call it, is also in your thoughts. It's how you think, it's how you face the world, it's how you project yourself. That determines, quote unquote, how modern or how traditional you are. And we need to find our own role models, particularly the girls, the young women of India. We need to find our own role models. This is another question I ask, usually in a meeting like this. Who is your role model? 2 girls in 10th standard, 12th standard, college. Many of them say they are mothers, which is very good and very heartening to hear that their mothers are their role models. But after that, the answers that I get are almost always Hillary Clinton or some businesswoman, not an Indian businesswoman, some person, Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook. And sometimes I get film stars. Like somebody told me Deepika Padukone. हो सकता है किसी का role model. But so far I have never heard anybody say that my role model is Ahilya Bai Holkar. Or my role model is Rani Lakshmibai. Everybody knows Rani Lakshmibai. Or anybody say that my role model is Velu Nachiyar. It's not the fault of those young people. It's our fault. It's a fault of my generation because we have never told them these stories. Today's young children, they have heard at the most of Rani Lakshmibai. But how many of you are in Tamil Nadu, okay? How many of you know the story of Velu Nachiyar? Raise your hands. All the Chinmaya kids do. Great. But again I'm saying, in a room like this, in an audience like this, I do not see 100% hands going up. That is a tragedy. And this is in a self-selecting audience. This is in an audience who is interested in these subjects. If I go to a general college and ask this question in a hall full of 500 people, maybe 5 people will raise their hands. You know that Velu Nachiyar was a queen who basically was the first one to fight against the British. About 80 years before Rani Lakshmibai. She was also the woman who built an all-woman battalion called Udayal Battalion. Right? Have you heard of a lady called Kuili? Chinmaya kids? No. Anybody else? Yes. What did she do? What was she famous for?
Suicide bomber.
Yes. First suicide bomber. See, today we hear about suicide bombing. We immediately hear Ola or Uber in our background, yeah? But this was a woman who really fought for a cause. And this was a woman who had agency. So that lie that's being told to us that in India women were always oppressed, India women were always a victim of patriarchy, in India women did not have decision-making power, is something that we have to dispel by giving concrete examples of our own role models, our own Viranganas.
Thank you so much. Shefali ji, always so eloquently put. I want to ask a similar kind of question. If I mention, I'm not going to give her name, but I'm just going to describe her. She was a young person. She was about 25 years old. She lost her husband. She had a little child. And she fought and won against a very, very powerful enemy. Who do you think I'm talking about? Rani Durgavati was a little bit older. I am talking about another Virangana, very, very powerful Virangana. You know what her name was? Maharani Tarabai. Maharani Tarabai, she was a Maratha queen. Shefali ji here is from the Maratha country. Maharani Tarabai, if you go and check, who is the queen who brought down Aurangzeb? Now, Aurangzeb is definitely, you don't have to, as a writer, you don't have to do too much to make him a villain. He was born a villain. So, for a person like that is being brought down by a young girl, 25 years old, a widow. Her empire at that time has been decimated more or less. Her people have lost fort after fort after fort. After her husband dies, they lose like 7 or 8 forts in a row. And she doesn't give up. So to me, this is at the heart of what I would call our version of feminism. Indian feminism, Swadeshi feminism, Naritva. Naritva which does not consume Narivat. You know, our feminism, our idea of having agency is not, the Western idea of thinking of men as an adversarial force or thinking of agency as something where you have to take on the world. It's a version of feminism where we believe in what we think is right and we control our destiny. And that is something that our heroines have been doing for millennia. I mean, what do you think Draupadi did? What do you think Sita Mata's role was? So we have this tradition of Viranganas, and as I said, Rani Durgavati is my ideal. Anybody ask me who my ideal is, I would always talk about her because she is a person who takes agency in her life all through. She is a Rajput princess who goes and falls in love with a tribal Gond prince, marries her against her father's wishes, and when he dies, takes over and runs her kingdom so beautifully that her people turn her into a goddess. And then when she is attacked by the mighty Mughal Emperor Akbar, his general Asaf Khan, she takes him on. And in the first battle, she gives him a nosebleed reply. It's only the second day when her generals don't listen to her battle strategies that she's taken down. And what is her rallying cry? Death before dishonor. This is agency. And I don't think a civilization that can birth as many Viranganas as we have can say that women did not have agency. That is just patently untrue. And, Shefali ji was just talking about Rani Lakshmi Bai. We've all heard of Khoob Ladi Mardani Thi, wo to Jhansi Wali Rani Thi. We've heard of her. But do you know how many women Viranganas were part of the 1857 War of Independence? Hundreds and hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. And most of them were the aristocratic women, the royal women. Most of them were widows. Just like Rani Lakshmi Bai. Rani Lakshmi Bai's own main general was a lady called Jhalkari Bai. Have you heard of Jhalkari Bai? Jhalkari Bai was Rani Lakshmi Bai's friend, and she started a woman's corps. And when Rani Lakshmi Bai had to flee for her life on her white horse Badal, it was Jhalkari Bai who impersonated her and fought till her death. So you have hundreds of these women who are completely unsung, whose roles have completely been forgotten. And it's not just the royalty, it's not just that they were all royals. Many of them were actually normal women, peasants. Many of them were courtesans, kotewali the. And many of them were, people who were working in the fields. They were agricultural laborers and so on. And they were invested in the idea of freeing our country from the British enough to give their lives. So if this isn't agency, I do not know what is. So if we are talking about role models, if we are talking about who we should look up to, I think we should go back to the pages of history.
Wonderful opening by both. So that's how I think secure and assured and rooted feminism looks like. In fact, I would not like to use the word feminism, the way it has taken shape nowadays. But anyways, going back to, the roots again, it brings me back, how the maternal aspect of the Indian woman shone through. And let's go back to Mahabharata, even older than that. So many people may not be knowing this, but when the war was imminent between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Krishna is sent as the peace messenger. And after, the peace mission fails, then tell me, somebody is very, very disappointed that Pandavas wanted peace and sent Krishna as more than Draupadi, other than Draupadi. Kunti. So she meets Krishna and is like, why did you come? Why did they send you? What on earth is Yudhishthira thinking? What has happened to my sons? Right? And then she quotes a lady called Vidula. My sons are all trained as Maharathis, but 13 years in forest, has it softened them or something? So I quote a song by a lady called Vidula, how she inspires her son towards battle. Right? So that is how, women were not proud of their own husbands or sons if they turn away from their duties. Right? And same with Draupadi, and I'm moving on from the nurturing to the leadership element as to, so in the Vanaparva, I think somebody quoted it yesterday, when Satyabhama asks Draupadi, how do you, all your husbands love you so much, tell me the secret. Satyabhama has the best husband in the world, but still. Then Draupadi narrates what she was doing as a queen. It's not just, sitting on the throne and being an ornamental this one, but she talks about the administrative duties, she talks about the treasury duties, she talks about interacting with commoners. So she's like, I used to do this, so they realize my value. It means that, yes, they look after me very well, but I've earned every bit of it. Right? And I know Shefali ji, that runs in the, continuum of our legacy. So yes, we've spoken about women on the battlefield, but women on the throne, I think Shefali ji has done extensive research on Ahilya Bai Holkar. So about the administrative abilities and, rejuvenating temples inside and outside her kingdom. Right, that's something.
But before I turn to Ahilya Bai Holkar, let me turn to somebody closer to this land. How many of you have heard of a queen called Sembian Mahadevi? Okay, this is too much of an exam. I'm sorry. I keep asking you questions. How many? Raise your hands again. Again, proving my point. 100% hands should have gone up in a room like this.
At least a popular film comes showing her a couple of scenes. I think everybody should know her.
So Sembian Mahadevi was the queen of Gandaraditya Chola and the mother of Uttam Chola. And after Gandaraditya passed on, she was the queen regent for her minor son. And even after he became the king, she wielded tremendous political power. And what she did is astounding. Not too many leadership figures today also have been able to do what she managed to do. She rebuilt temples. She built original temples, she rebuilt the older brick temples, and she started what is known today as the canon of Chola architecture, the standardization. Of course, later on Rajaraja Chola built upon it, and that's why you have the big temple in Tanjavur, and in Gangaikonda Cholapuram, which are the finest example of Chola temples. But she was the one who standardized it. She was the one who rebuilt temples, built new temples, and she had such a sense of history. This is what I find it really amazing. She did not destroy the epigraphs that were there on the older temples. She preserved them. She added them onto the temples that she built, so there is a record of who built the temple before her. This sense of history, this sense of record keeping, this sense of leaving a legacy for the future is not something even today's leaders are born with, to have that kind of vision. She was also the person who is behind what we know as Chola bronzes, the enormous Chola bronzes that we have today. Of course, they were being made before her also. As somebody said, they were done by the lost wax, Madhuchishta Vidhan as it's called, that technique. But she standardized it again, and the enormous Chola bronzes that you find, those bronzes are thanks to Sembian Mahadevi and her patronage to the arts. Not only that, she also made administrative changes so that single women, widowed women, women with minor children could donate to the temples, could have a say in the running of the temples, and they could give dhanams in their own name. Today we think it's easy that I, Shefali Vaidya, not Mrs. somebody, can donate something to an institution like Dakshin Vrindavan under my own name. Today it's normal. But this happened in 10th century CE. And in all her epigraphic notes, she writes Sembian Mahadevi, I, Sembian Mahadevi, wife of Gandaraditya, has donated this. So this kind of pride in your own identity, this kind of pride in your own name, the kind of agency that you have is really amazing. And this happened in 10th century CE, which I find really, really remarkable. Now we move on to her original question, Ahilya Bai. So the story that starts with Sembian Mahadevi sort of, continues till Ahilya Bai. And Ahilya Bai again was a widowed queen. She was widowed at a very young age. She was barely 27 or 28 when she lost her husband. And in those days, by that time, the practice of sati was fairly prevalent among warrior families. And she was all ready to go sati. That is when her father-in-law stopped her. He said, you are very capable. The exact Marathi words are, Bai, maza unhala karun jates ka. Meaning, are you leaving me in a parched summer? I know you are capable of maintaining my kingdom. My son is dead now. You please come back. Do not go Sati, and you become the queen of Malwa. And that is exactly what happened. She became the queen of Malwa. And today, I see the women in my generation, and I include myself also in it, we become very stressed out over small things. The domestic help doesn't turn up, oh my God, I'm so depressed. I got stuck in a traffic jam, oh my God, I'm so depressed. My child has a little bit of a cold, oh my God, I'm so depressed. This was a woman who had nothing but adversity in her personal life. She did not enjoy probably a single year of pure happiness. Maybe initially when her husband was alive, but even there he had too many other women. He was not the right man for her, for somebody who was so virtuous and so strong. So even that marriage by today's standards could not have been very happy. Her son was, she had only one son. Her son was a total cause of shame for her because he was sadistic, he was addicted to a lot of substances, he was not a capable leader. And when he died, she actually said that with his death, he is also released and the people of my kingdom are also released, because if he were to be the king, the kingdom would not be very happy. This is a mother saying this. She had a daughter whom she got her married to a commoner who was a brave man, not an aristocrat. She actually put a competition and said, whoever tackles the bill problem in my kingdom, that brave person I will marry my daughter into. And she got a commoner as her son-in-law. And she kept seeing everybody she loved die before her. Her husband died, her son died, her son-in-law died, her daughter committed sati, her grandson died. So she saw all of this. Her personal life was nothing but a litany of sorrows. She did not complain. She did not blame her fate. She did not blame God. She said, okay, this is what is given to me, but I am not going to be a victim. I am not going to cry. I am instead going to treat my populace, my praja, as my children, and I'm going to look after her. And she was one of the best administrators that we had even today. Even she allowed widowed women in her kingdom to take a child in adoption so that they would not be treated as destitute. She made roads. She invited the weavers from Gujarat to Maheshwar, and the Maheshwari sari that you see, Jagan's mom is wearing a very beautiful green one, Maheshwari sari. So that Maheshwari sari, which is being woven even today, is something that Ahilyabai herself designed. Because she herself preferred very simple designs, that is why Maheshwari saris are very simple even today. They don't have too many motif work, they do not have too much of jari. They just have a plain body and a very thin jari border. She built a palace. How many of you have gone to Maheshwar? Okay, quite a few people. But if you go to Maheshwar, and if you see her quote-unquote palace, it does not feel like a palace at all. It just feels like a reasonably big home of somebody well-to-do. She was a queen of Malwa. And even in that palace, she lived in one room which is stark in its simplicity. It just has one mattress on the floor. Because she had lost her husband very early, she ate only once, she wore only white sari, she spent a large part of her day doing pujas. She had bare minimum needs. She built temples, rebuilt temples all over India, which were destroyed by the Muslim invaders, including the Somnath temple, including the Kashi Vishwanath temple, the Vishnupad temple in Gaya, all of this. She built ghats on the rivers in Maharashtra, in UP. She built dharamshalas. Her dharamshalas still stand all the way from Kedarnath to Rameshwaram. And she was not even the queen of a huge expanse in India. She was a queen of a little tiny thing in central India called Malwa. And she managed all this through her personal income. Because her needs were so limited, she wanted to build a dharamshala in Rameshwaram. But she was fair-minded to say that this money will not come from the taxes of my citizens, because it is not their desire. I want to do it for the Hindus of India, but I will do it out of my own private income. And yet, today, people come and tell us that Indians or Hindus have no parampara of philanthropy. How many queens? She was a contemporary of British queens which were very profligate, who did not repeat their clothes. And here was a queen who spent all her personal income in trying to build a legacy for the Hindus, not just of her kingdom, but Hindus all over India. And those dharamshalas, those ghats, those temples still stand today. That is the legacy of Ahilyabai Holkar.
So, and it should not be a surprise to know that this kind of, commissioning temples, rebuilding temples, and, looking at the administrative aspects of the kingdom, it's not just one superwoman who did that. We had such examples all over the country throughout the time. So I'd request Nandini to shed light on the Gupta princesses, which...
So, thank you, Sai, because one of the most fascinating characters from classical India that stands out for me is a lady called Prabhavati Gupta. Shefali ji just talked about Semyan Mahadevi. Prabhavati Gupta is also relatively unknown, relatively. How many of you have heard of Prabhavati Gupta? Okay, so there's just two hands. Prabhavati Gupta was the daughter of Chandragupta Vikramaditya, the great Chandragupta Vikramaditya.
And he's different from Chandragupta Maurya.
There's a millennium difference. So Chandragupta Maurya came nearly 1,000 years before Chandragupta Vikramaditya. So Chandragupta Vikramaditya's daughter, Prabhavati Gupta, was married into the Vakataka royal family. So Vakataka royal family is Western India. It was a very, very large, very prosperous kingdom. And she lost her, first her father-in-law and then her husband in very quick succession. And she had two very small children, so she became the regent, the queen regent. Now, why am I bringing up Prabhavati Gupta? And how is she connected to someone like, say, Semyan Mahadevi and later Ahilyabai Holkar or someone like Rani Durgavati? There is a very interesting copper plate inscription, is called the Pune copper plate inscription, where Prabhavati Gupta is making a grant. Why is that inscription interesting? Because in that inscription, she is referring to herself. We know that among Hindus, when a daughter marries, her gotra changes, right? So the daughter, when she gets married, she assumes the gotra of the family in which she's getting married into. Here's the interesting thing. In the Pune copper plate inscription, Prabhavati Gupta refers to herself by her father, Chandragupta Vikramaditya's gotra, and not by her husband's gotra. So she is referring to herself by her father's gotra and as a Gupta princess. Is that agency or not? And this is happening roughly 1,600 years before Western feminists came up with the concept of feminism. Okay, and just like the other women queens that have been mentioned so far on this discussion, she was an exemplary ruler. So she ruled her kingdom for about 20 years. Not 1 year, not 2 years. You know, our section of our historians jump up and down about Razia Sultan. How many years was Razia Sultan on the throne? 3 years. How many years was Prabhavati Gupta ruling her kingdom? 20 years. So, you know, we see this continuity. We see her as an administrative and governing entity who was considered not only legitimate, but also very, very efficient and compassionate. And this is something that we see so we are talking about here 4th century India. Let's take a time jump and look at somebody like my favorite, like I said, Rani Durgavati, who came roughly another 1,000 years later. All right? And again, we see the same kind of trend. What Shefali ji was talking about, Ahilyabai Holkar, Rani Durgavati, we were just having this discussion prior to this panel where we were talking about how Rani Durgavati invited Brahmin scholars from across India. So she'd invited Dravida Brahman, so Brahmins from South India, and Panchadash Dravid Brahman, and she settled them in her kingdom. She also invited Brahmin scholars from Kannauj, and her Raj Purohit, Mahesh Thakkar, was later given a kingdom in Bihar by Akbar, and that became Darbhanga, and Mahesh Thakkar was the first king of Darbhanga, and that's where the Hindu scholarship, the school of scholarship, the Mithila stroke Darbhanga school of scholarship came from there. So you have a lady who is not only scholarly, well educated, but understands the importance of scholarship. And we have several instances of court poets, of scholars in her own kingdom, in her own court, including one particular book that was commissioned by her. We have a copy of that book. It is currently there in Asiatic Society. Commissioned by her, called Prastab Ratnakar, which was meant for her son, for her teenage son. So she's commissioning books. She's got scholars. She's got Hindu scholars and purohits from all over the country coming to her kingdom. She's building temples. There are temples in Barman Ghat and other parts of Garha and Mandala, which are definitively associated with her name. She did Mandir Sanskar, a lot of temples that were going to rack and ruin. She refurbished them. And there are multiple sort of references. There is a Ramgarh inscription which clearly says that she spent so much time doing yagna, doing in her sacred duties, that she was called Kamadhenu, like a goddess of fortune. So, and in terms of just being a good administrator, she was responsible. She knew that her region, that Garha Mandala region, which is current day Jabalpur and surrounding areas, was very dry. It's not a very lush, not like Tamil Nadu, which is lush, green, and very fertile. So she decided that she would encourage her people to turn more of that rocky forest land into good cultivable land. So she said that anybody who digs a lake and turns the surrounding areas into cultivable patches, can keep the land. And this very small introduction meant that the entire kingdom not only produced enough grain to feed its own people, it was exporting grain to Gujarat and to Dakhin. This is mentioned by Abul Fazl in the Akbarnama. So you have a dry patch of land which becomes a grain bowl and which starts exporting grain because she is intervening in water management and land management. This is smart governance, you see. So this is the kind of women leaders we have had, who are not just brave, which they were, did not just have agency, which they did, but they were also excellent administrators.
And talking about water management, you would be surprised to know that most of the step wells in Rajasthan and Gujarat, one of the most arid regions of this country, are actually not built by kings, they are built by queens. They're built, even the very well-known World Heritage Site of Patan is built by the queen in memory of her husband. Not all were built by widows in memory of their husband. Some were built as public works, basically. Because the women who were in charge, they were aware of the struggle for water in households better than the men, and they knew that women from ordinary households would spend a great amount of their day just fetching water for the household. So they were humane enough, they were understanding enough of this. So their intuitive understanding of water management and the need to create water resources was, I think, far more than the male counterparts. That is why one of the most important things that they did in this region was to build huge step wells to collect rainwater and to act as a water reservoir.
Rani Ka Bhav, no? Yeah. That's also...
So wonderful. That was about valor. That was about leadership and administration. And coming to the next myth to be busted is about education and expression. Right? And again, a Tamil Nadu related question. So, how many of you have heard about Muddu Pallani? Muddu Pallani. Only Swamiji has heard? Sure. So Muddu Pallani is now not a queen. She is a courtesan. And she has written one of the boldest Kama texts called Radhika Santwanam, which has got very bold expressions about lovemaking. And she gets this idea that, she has to, write this work. And the king, Raghunatha Nayaka, sorry. No, it's the Tanjavur Nayakas. So, Tanjavur king, he says, he didn't say, why do you want to write such a book? No. Instead, he encourages her. He not only commissions the book, he also employs 2 scholars to help her compose it in poetry. So she acknowledges those 2 scholars' name for teaching her advanced poetry so that this whole kavya can be written in the chandas. So those 2 Brahmins, they sat with her, edited her work and made it an immortal text. And now, and that work was celebrated, in drama, dance and all. Now who comes and bans it? British. Right? And now the West comes and tells us, so, you women don't have right to express in India. Seriously? Exactly. So, even, coming to, the Muddu Pallani was one example close home. Another example, because I think those women also realized that modern historians are going to distort, so they thought at least some of them thought they'll record their own adventures. And Madhura Vijayam, right? It is the story of Veera Kamparaya or Kumara Kamparaya who dreams of Meenakshi Ammal coming and telling him, instructing him to uproot the Madurai Sultanate and win back Meenakshi. And somehow, there are some historians who tell, Vijayanagara is a foreign empire to Tamil Nadu. Literally, like Madurai Sultanate grew in the soil, right? So yes, this round will focus on the education and the scholarship of women of ancient India.
Can I just interject for 5 minutes? I'm from Pondicherry, so you were talking about this courtesan. If you go to Pondicherry, there is a huge park in the center called Bharti Park. And there's a white monument there. It's a very French-looking monument. And that monument is called I Mandapam. I want to quickly share the story of I was a courtesan, very famous courtesan in that area when that area was part of the Vijayanagar kingdom. And there was a period of severe drought. And I was responsible. She was, as a courtesan, actually very rich. So she was responsible for digging the biggest tank just outside Pondicherry, and that tank continues to supply water to this day. And when Pondicherry became part of the French Empire, the French Emperor Napoleon III, somebody went and told, because they were demolishing existing structures and rebuilding Pondicherry. So somebody went and said, please don't do anything to this part because there is a memorial to somebody called I. So the whole story was narrated to Napoleon III, who was so impressed and he was so moved by the story, then he said that we will create a memorial. So that memorial still stands. If you ever go to Pondicherry, do go to Bharti Park and check out I Mandapam.
This education thing, so normally now the modern narrative is women in India, they did not have the right to educate themselves. There were no schools, they did not know how to read and write, and then the British came, and then the movement to educate girls started and whatever. If this was true, and when the British came, it was true that largely the standard schooling for women was not there. That is true. But that happened in that interim period because of the Islamic rule. But before that, if women in India did not know how to read and write, how did Rukmini write a letter to Sri Krishna asking him to come and rescue her? How did Shakuntala write a letter with her nails on a Kamalpatra to Dushyant? How are there sculptures of a Patra Lekhika, of a woman who is writing in both Patan Ki Vav, which was built in the 11th century, and the temples of the Hoysalas, which were built in around the 12th century or so. There are so many figures of the Apsaras, of the Surasundaris, and they are writing on a slate. How could this would have been immortalized in sculpture if there were no examples of it? Forget this. We come to Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji Maharaj became Shivaji Maharaj because of his mother. Because when he was being raised by a single mother, she was the one who told him stories from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and who basically constantly told him about the injustices of the Islamic rule and encouraged him to fight. Now, if she did not know how to read and write, how did she know in detail about Ramayana and Mahabharata enough to teach her son morality, what is right and what is wrong? So there was a system of education. There was a system where women could learn to read and write. There were no schools in the sense of the British sense, Western sense, yes. But that too, because of the Islamic rule, there was so much of destruction, there was so much of atrocities on women, that this whole system of keeping women indoors largely happened after the advent of Islam in India. And this has been documented, by the way. This is not just me saying it.
That's true. A quick addition to what Shefali is saying. There are extant letters written in her own hand by Tarabai, where, the couple of words are literally in her own hand, in the medieval Modi script. There are also letters written by Rani Durgavati. So, literally written by her. And we know from Abul Fazl himself, actually, that she invited Mahesh Thakkar to her court so that he would tell her stories from the Puranas. So if she was an illiterate woman, she would not want a very scholarly, erudite Brahmin to come and tell her stories from the Puranas. And again, if we take a time jump back, and we look at the queens in classical India, we look at, say, Prabhavati Gupta and others, there is a very strong tradition of them being educated in statecraft, not just education in the sense of learning literature and poetry, but also statecraft. And there are, if you look at some of the sculptural examples that have come to us from the 1st century CE, which is from Chandraketugarh in and around Bengal, there are clear references to women writing, like you were referring to, on steles, on like slates, and they are writing. And this whole tradition of sending a letter to your beloved, Rani Durgavati herself did that. She sent her Bipra, which was her priest, sent a letter through him to her beloved, to who was going to be her husband later on, and asked him to come and Haran Vivah her. So this entire myth that there was absolutely no education of women is not true. But obviously, as you said, because of Islamic invasion, women were kept increasingly indoors.
So as a concluding note, I just want to also, before I open the floor for questions, we have some time for questions. Okay. So, and also there is another argument that, education, women are educated, you are quoting one queen, one princess there, here, only the upper castes had that privilege. And yesterday Dushyantji quoted the Telugu Ramayanas, one by Molla Ramayana. And Molla was not a Brahmana. She belonged to, her father was a potter. Right? And she wrote, almost 600 poems long, 600 plus poems long Ramayana in Telugu. And, when we quote Ramayana, mostly our memory goes to Molla Mamba. And again, Ranganatha Ramayana, again, not written by a woman poet, but he is called Gona Buddharaja Reddy. who is a small-time Reddy king, warlord will be the. And then so most of the Ramayanas in Telugu were written by somebody who are not Brahmanas. So that is one and one by women. So that's just one view of or outlook of how knowledge was actually all pervasive throughout Indian society. And yes, on that note, we'll open up for questions. Swamiji wanted to. So, by the way, the writer of Madhura Vijayam was Queen Ganga Devi. I didn't get to take her name. Ganga Devi, wife of Kumara Kamparaya or Veera Kamparaya, who's the son of Bukkaraya.
Big credit to our all sisters, especially thousands of years we have a struggle with Islamic invader. Not a single Sanskrit scholar, Brahmin or non-Brahmin, have anywhere recorded Islamic atrocity anywhere in the literature. And these main fellow, Brahmin, non-Brahmin, they were all busy in writing about the beauty of women, but they never mentioned anywhere the atrocity of this Islamic in this record. Only credit goes to Gangabai in Madhura Vijayam. She is the one who has recorded all the atrocity. That part we need to highlight. Coming to the, why I don't want to mention, because many of you are busy, because I am very critical to this point, because all these men scholars have never recorded anything. They were all busy in writing the beauty about the women, Second point, you are mentioning about the education of women in the higher education. I have written in my book, Malti Madhav, read the reference to Malti Madhav. Two bhikkhuni, they are discussing. We were trained under the same vice chancellor, where the our classmates have become ministers, So they also trained in the higher education, and those girls have not coming from their same village. They have come from the different area to study in the different higher institution. That is what Malti Madhav has mentioned. So there was a provision for girls for higher education, and there was an institution for them also.
Yeah, talking about that, there is a compilation of poems called a Therigatha, which is written by women monks in Buddhism. And if you read those Therigatha, Theri means female monk, the kind of themes that they have handled is really astounding. It is full of abstract philosophy, full of examples, very learned way of expressing themselves. So obviously, whatever the modern Marxist history tells us and whatever our evidence is, they do not tally. Before we open the floor for questions, there is one queen and she's pestering me because she's saying this story is not complete without my mention, probably because she's from Goa and I'm from Goa. Her name is Nayaki Devi, yes. Nayaki Devi. So she was the Kadamba princess from Goa and she got married to King Ajay Pala of Anilwad, which is today's Patan in Gujarat. After her husband died, she was the queen regent to her son, whose name is Mullah Raja II, and he was just a 2-year-old baby that time. And Muhammad Ghori attacked Anilwad at that time. Muhammad Ghori was very sure, male arrogance, na? There is a 2-year-old baby who is a king and his mother is ruling in his as his regent. So the kingdom will just fall if I just snap my fingers. If I say surrender, they'll surrender. That is what he thought. But this queen was so strategically thinking that she chose the place and time of the battle at a terrain which Ghori's forces were not used to. She sent letters to all the kingdoms nearby her and said that my kingdom is very small, but this is a fight, not just my fight. If I lose, then you all lose too. So we have to get together and fight together. Then the third thing she did strategically was she realized that, okay, she is putting in a fight, do or die. But if she loses, then having seen how Islam treats captured children and women, she knew that she did not want her praja, the women from her kingdom and her children to fall in the hands. So she requested her surrounding kingdoms to take her kingdom's women and children, so that they would be at least away somewhere safe. And then she sent a large part of her army as deserters to join Ghori's army. pretend to be deserters. So they joined Ghori's army, and that is when she attacked. And when she attacked, the people who had infiltrated Ghori's army, they also attacked. And that is when Muhammad Ghori was soundly defeated in that battle. And because of that, he went back and he never attacked India from that side. If you see the letter history, he was the one who defeated Prithviraj Chauhan and all that we know. But he came from another side. He came from Punjab. He came from Delhi. But he never came back from Gujarat because this woman had defeated him fair and square. Jain literature describes her as Simharidayi Vidyavati, lion-hearted, knowledgeable woman. So obviously she had education, she had leadership, and she was a very brave queen. And a very young queen.
The Solanki queens also. They are also. Rudrama Devi.
Yeah, Rudrama Devi. One thing about Rudrama Devi, most of us know Rudrama Devi maybe thanks to that movie or whatever, but her sister Ganapamba was also a very able administrator. And the thing with Rudrama Devi, she never lost a battle till her last one where she died, and by that time she was a grandmother. 80 years old. And Sampadanandaji
Yes. So adding to what Swamiji said about women education, we celebrate Chatushashti Kala, the 64 arts. Almost all the kalas are women-centric, except few. And also like the word Vidya and Kala are feminine. Right? Vidya samasta tava devi veda. So Kalaha samasta. So, Sakala Jagatsu, all the Vidyas and Kalas are feminine in nature. So, that is the importance which is given to the women education. You can see Chatushashti Kala, how do we celebrate? This is what I wanted to add to what Swamiji said. Thank you.
There's a young friend here. Yes. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, there's that young friend.
Yes.
I would like to ask one question.
Can we just allow the youngsters to ask, please?
Hari Om, Ma'am. I'm a person who has studied in two different boards, ICSE and CBSE. And as Shefali Ma'am said, it's not the fault of the youth that you're not aware of these things. In both the history textbooks, I've seen a grave injustice taking place. Most of the British generals are prefer their title as sirs, but then Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj has not even been mentioned with this title many times. So what would you think would incite a response amongst the government to correct this mistake made by them in the history textbooks? Because that's the first information that we're getting regarding Indian history. And so many different great examples have been quoted by all of you. And when we hear those things, we are able to tell it to our friends, our people, our parents. But then most of the students in India, most of the students in a lot of places are not getting this information. And that is the thing that's keeping them ignorant of the rich history that India has. So what would be the things that the Indian government has to do, or what would be our duty to make the Indian government introduce some reforms into our history textbooks?
See, none of us are in the government, so we cannot give you a correct answer to this question. But if your question is, should history books be changed? Yes, they should have been changed 75 years ago. Very true.
No, but from your side, what you can do is read history for fun. Read history yourself, because if you look at actual evidence, primary source evidence, you will see where the story has been changed.
Another thing what you can do is and this is for not just true for education, but we don't take that effort. If something bothers you, so any civic problem also, write to your public representative. Keep writing. Because unless you become a pressure group and unless you put it out there in writing, outrage in closed halls like this is not going to really result. You guys are going to be first time voters in, I don't know, next
year.
election. So you guys should absolutely say that this is important to us, and you will get our vote only after these issues have been addressed. So if there is enough pressure, the government moves. The point is, we talk a lot in public, not you, it's a very valid question that you asked, but most of us, we talk a lot in closed halls, but we do not put our demands in writing. So that is, in a democracy, if you keep asking and form a pressure group, the government is forced to act. And as Swami Mitrananji said, things are changing. Like Chinmay Mission has, and I've seen those set of books. Those books are excellent, 6th, 7th standard, 8th standard history books that they have made.
No, I think NCRT is also changing the curriculum.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you have a question? We'll take a question and then if we have time. The girl has a question?
Yeah, you can always meet us afterwards.
Yes. The girl has a question.
You told us a lot of situations where women were widowed and then the kingship that was originally the husband's passed on to them. But have there been ever any cases where directly a king or a queen was able to pass on rulership to their daughters?
That is your Rudrama. Rudrama Devi. So the father had 2 daughters and there was a lot of pressure on him to crown his brother's son as a king. But he was very insistent that my daughters are capable and they will be kings. So he had to do Putrika Yagya to sort of, say that there is a divine blessing for it. But Rudrama Devi was the inherited queen of the Kakatiya Empire.
Also,
but yeah, there should have been more examples.
Oriya Queen, Mahadevi. There's an Oriya Queen also. Yeah.
And to quote Meenakshi Ambal herself, right? And this story is not a part of the main Mahabharata. I think it's a part of Jaibiniya Mahabharata or something. So there is a king called Meenakshi Ambal's father, Malayadhvaja Pandya. He participated in the Mahabharata war and he gets killed in the hands of Ashwathama. So after Pandavas win the war, Yudhishthira is taking care of whoever fought on our side and got killed. He sends them special gifts and whoever is remaining in the family, he sends consolations and all. And there is a beautiful message by Yudhishthira he sends through Bhima to Madurai, to Meenakshi, who was a 16-year-old princess at that time. So he says, you are the only daughter of your father, so it becomes your duty to pursue one education, one arts, because don't stop enjoying life just because you are struck by a strategy. Then also get empowered, rule the kingdom. So here we'll offer you all the support that you want as the Chakravarti and all that. You take on, you should sit on the throne and remind your population about your father and let them not feel orphaned because they lost their king, because you are there. So that message to Meenakshi, it just has the message of women empowerment, encapsulated in that.
There's also Chitrangada. Chitrangada, another example.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to my wonderful panelists. I wouldn't have, been able to cover the length and breadth of this topic, without passionate historians. Thank you, audience. Okay, thank you.
We move on to a critical keynote session right now. We have with us Honorable Justice N. Sesasai ji, who will be speaking on the topic Viksit Bharat, Positioning Judiciary. He brings the voice of the judiciary into this national dialogue. In this session, he explores how law can serve as the guardian of dharma, ensuring fairness, dignity and progress as Bharat steps forward. Let us invite Honorable Justice onto the stage with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, all. It was such a fascinating experience to be as a participant, listener of a previous session, heard so much about women empowerment, women education, and how it thrived. I just compare that with the contemporary world. I mean, we don't see the best of worlds. After all, the sane will not come to the court. He who cheats or he who gets cheated, they come to the court. Here, I wish the children are made aware about the distinction between entitlement and empowerment. That is where the world gets struggled these days. And I've got my reasons, but then that is not my topic. Viksit Bharat, positioning judiciary. Before I chose the topic, in fact, the organizers were kind enough to ask me to speak on a topic of my choice, something to do with Viksit Bharat. What can be great? I mean, the first half they chose, the second half I chose the topic. Before the topic was chosen, I was there in Delhi, participated in a program which deals with strengthening tribunals. Now I am part of the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. So I was invited. I find, and there were people were rambling with statistics, trying to project how bad the tribunals are functioning. And eventually, because there is some NGO which policy making there was main focus or objectives, they work in tandem with another NGO in Delhi. They all combine to produce a lot of statistics to show that tribunals do not function. And surprisingly, I came to know in my speech, during my speech and after my speech, that not one of them were before any tribunal to see how a tribunal actually works. Therefore, I thought when I chose this topic, I requested the organizers to circulate questionnaires, about 4 or 5 common questions, the great opinion citizens have about our judiciary. It was circulated. I am told that about 300 questionnaires were circulated, and it evoked only 48 responses. And this morning, I came here to collect those, to just know what kind of, how people actually responded. Only 18 among the 48 say they knew something about courts. Rest of them, they said, no, or I know something about courts. You have to check with him. You want an action replay? Okay. So there are 300 questionnaires, I'm told they were circulated. 48, we got only about 48 responses, of whom, as I went through the answers, I find only 18 say with confidence, I know something about courts. Rest say, I know something about it, and many say, no. Honest answers. And the criticisms, or observations, after all, citizens are entitled to make their observation about the institution which is intended for them. As expected, long pendency and delay, corruption, judicial corruption, including bias and political biases, attitude of the judges, lack of accountability. There is no logic in many judgments and lack of consistency in judgments. But then solutions, we are talking about, the more you want to need solution, don't talk about problem, talk about solution. Solutions, three were honest. Don't ask the society. Society has become asura. So don't ask the society, but no solution has come. And someone has said, cut all vacations, something I expected for the judges, and also privileges. And the same gentleman has also said, increase the workload of judges. Then 4 people made wonderful statement. Society must take responsibility for the institutions. Some said, give up archaic procedure. Another said, bring in AI. And only one supported judiciary as it exists, because the one who answered it has ambitions in judiciary, but indicated it. I want to become so and so. I respect each of these observations. Having said that, we are not. So here is an audience. About 200, 300 questionnaires circulated. Only 48 wanted to at least participate in a discussion or a discourse on transformation of judiciary to make it relevant to Viksit Bharat. So where are we? We are here to take, I represent judiciary, not because the Supreme Court or the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has nominated me. After all, I have spent 20 years as a lawyer, 20 years as a judge. I think I have got fair enough number of years of experience to make some statements about it. I do not for one discount the fact that we don't require transformation, updating ourselves to meet your expectations. But where are you going to start it? Someone said, cut all privileges for judges. Wonderful. You know, in spite of these privileges, we don't get quality judges. People are not willing to come forward to become judges. Why? It's a backbreaking, thankless job. Nobody wants to take up these days. Who decides that? The society decides that. A lawyer somewhere decides that he may be a best of quality, but he decides not to come. Then you have to make choices with available choices. Who is to blame? When I became a district judge, when I was appointed as a district judge, that was a time I was speaking up as a lawyer after quite a number of early years of struggle, which any lawyer would necessarily undergo. I was in 2 minds, to be or not to be. And I discussed this with a senior counsel in Madurai. He said, it's a call of the nation. You know, many people who want to become Jawan and stand in the queue in the winter for the selection, for selecting 100 Jawans, some 1,000 able-bodied men go and stand there. Each one of them know that they are likely to be killed if they want to serve the nation. They are even ready to die for the nation, yet not everyone get the good fortune of being selected as a Jawan, appointed as a Jawan. So this is a call of the nation, call of the divinity, that you have to serve, don't look for money. I did that. But then I have a family. Yeah, please understand, I will start from the perception. I'm not here to position judiciary, because judiciary is your institution, not mine. You have to position judiciary where you want to. This is, therefore, the problem in this country is anything that does not belong to me and anything which I want to do well for me, it belongs to somebody else, and that somebody else should take care of every one of my needs, and I'm not going to take responsibility for that. I will tell you something, a few anecdotal experiences. I have handled as many number of cases in my chamber meeting of all variety, from corporate disputes to family disputes to partition disputes. I want to see if something can be solved by discussing to the parties. Here is a lady who came in. I asked her, what's your problem? She said, my husband doesn't even allow me to wear the saree of my color or the choice of my color. It's a problem for her. It's a problem for her. You may consider this absolutely ridiculous. Even I consider that. I called her husband. What's your problem? He said, sir, I can ask only my wife to wear the color of my choice. I cannot ask my neighbor's wife. For us, it's something to laugh about. For her, the problem. For her, it's a problem. I can give umpteen number of such nonsense cases. I did not ask the spouses to fight. I did not ask somebody to squat on somebody's land. I did not ask somebody to forge a document and file a suit. I did not ask anybody any brother to deny a sister a share in the property. I did not ask anybody to break the contract. Who do it? You do it. And you dump everything on the court. Problem I create, solution I outsource it to the court. This is the attitude. Please understand. When you go for a patta, I did not ask anybody to, you had to go for a patta, somebody has to look at your title deed and give you the patta. If he does not do, I don't ask him not to do that. For you to come to the court. If you have got a problem in identifying the boundaries of your property, you have to go to the surveyor, pay the charges, and ask him to measure the property. The surveyor under law has to give notice to all parties who are adjacent to the property which is required to be surveyed. The moment the notice comes, they come to the court. Rather, he has to stand in the field, help the surveyor and understand the matter. And when the matter actually comes to the court, we appoint a commissioner, the same surveyor goes on behalf of the party and measures the same land. Where's the problem? See, we are not a garbage truck as you think to solve everybody's problem, but you dump problem on us and blame us for that. I have no issues on that. But then you all continue to have, unless you take responsibility as to the quality of litigation that should actually come to the court, the inflow of litigation can never be stopped. It's human temptations, essentially based on greed and lack of compassion. I did not ask anybody to throw their parents on the road. I did not do that. I did not ask anybody to drive their wife and children onto the road. I did not do that. Therefore, when are we, the society, going to take responsibility for the institution that we have created? It is not for my benefit. I have got a lot of anger there. Here's a scenario where, so unless you take responsibility for the institution, please inscribe in your mind before you show an accusing finger to the judiciary. Yes, we have got ills. Yes, we have got a lot of problems inside. There's no meaning in talking to you. That's a platform talking where I have to talk to them. But where are we going to stop? See, for instance, if there is a blockage in a drainage, or let us say your tap, What does a plumber do? He first closes the supply line, then attends to this. Can we do that? Can we do that? And merely because there are sanitary workers to collect garbage, is it necessary that you should dump garbage on the road? That precisely is happening to judiciary. At least in my experience in the last 20 years as a judge, most cases, at least about 30-35% of the cases are just useless cases. But we do not know. There's something called judicial process. Please understand, the famous saying is, justice must not only be done, but seen to be done. What is the seen to be done all about? I must hear, and I must hear her too. You measure everything in the barometer of time. There's a time, you have to ask only 20 minutes. Who are you to say that? See, I cannot do stop-clock justice. Each case has got a different complexion. I always used to call courts or doctors of bleeding rights. We are doctors of bleeding rights. Whether everybody follows the same attitude is a different issue. That is about individuals who man the court. But all I would like to state is, do you ask a cardiac surgeon, there are about 100 people waiting in the queue, but I get a date only in some 7 months hence. Do you ask? For you, your case matters. If those who have got any litigation in the court, for you, your case matter. For us, every case matters. If your advocate argue for 2 hours, explaining everything, repeating, re-repeating, you are absolutely happy about it because you are paid him, your advocate speaks for 2 hours and court was extremely patient. But then the one who argued before your advocate is also equally entitled to make statements on his case. But where is the time? Say, they overload the judge. Overload judge with what? You have ever known a judge's life? I've been a judge for 20 years. For the third time I'm talking about it. I've been a judge for 20 years. I'm entitled to 2 LTC every year. Please understand, vacations, we are sedentary work. Right from morning 7 o'clock to evening 9 o'clock. You only see the visible portion, 10:30 to 4:35 you see. But we work way before that. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, evening 8 o'clock. See how many judges go home by 8 o'clock. Have you ever known that? And we have got our health issues. Our occupational hazard due to our sedentary lifestyle is enormous. So when the vacation comes for about 10 days, most of us go for this Kovai, this Ayurvedic pharmacy, KAP. Most of us will be here. You go here during summer vacation, most of them will be here. To get an appointment during summer vacation will be, they have got only few beds. We have to make well in advance. And remaining 20 days, we actually work on the cases which we have reserved for, where we require to break our back and brain to write a judgment. Do you know that? So it is much easier to write off a judge and to give a bad name to a judge and hang him. Much easier. But where is the social responsibility? Therefore, gentlemen, it's all, and the decision making. It is not, it's not like an ordering for an espresso coffee, give a tenner and get a Coke or get an espresso coffee. No. We all take decisions. Please understand, we all take decisions. You go to a restaurant. You just all go to 10 of you go to a restaurant. You will be served, a menu card will be circulated. How much time you take to choose your favorite dish? Right? The only person who makes quick decision in all his life is, in my mind, is the football referee. Without a blink of an eye, he pulls a yellow card, red card, good, bad or ugly, the game progress. Because the game itself lasts for some 45, 1 2 hours, the whole game gets ended. Life is some kind of a T20. It is you are right involved. If somebody loses a case, who knows the fate of the family? I see a litigant. Hence I said, I'm not concerned about the lawyers. But the important thing is, we are concerned and overly concerned about the one who is behind him. One who we do not see. His rights are involved. His fortune, his life is involved. It is much easier to dispose. I can easily, safely say, why all odd numbers allowed, all even numbers dismissed. I can do that. I can do that. Why should we break our head? So this is, some of you will be in various clubs, association, or companies presiding over board meetings. Everything is there. You take decisions. There will be differences in the club or in your, so even resident associations. There will be a committee. There will be meeting. There will be some difficulty for you to take decisions. Eventually, when you decide, only the decision, the last part of it, the resolution forms part of it. You don't require to write why you come to that decision, for which you have to spend 10, 15, 20 pages. And if those 20 pages, everything has to be measured in time. Everything has to be measured in time. So unless our workload is reduced, for which society has to take a lot of responsibility, you are never going to see. We can speak. You can speak, you criticize, judiciary is corrupt. I agree, judiciary is corrupt. It is biased. Yes, it is biased. What are the alternatives? Somebody said collegium. I expected it. Collegium system. Now, collegium system this is a wrong perception. Vis-a-vis Viksit Bharat and collegium system, I don't see a connection. What is collegium system about? 5 judges sit together to pick judges. You say there is nepotism, there is bias, there's blah, blah stuff. What if all the judges so selected are actually competent to become judges? How does it matter to you? The issue is, the accusation is, it does not produce the right kind of judges. They don't select the right kind of judges. So it is not so much about collegium system, it is so much, is all about the choice of judges they select. Possibly, yes. Therefore, let us start in Ramayana. There is a own beautiful character. I always love that character. Hanuman is one popular character, is a Superman, who he enters appearance almost after 1/3 of Ramayana and continues even till Mahabharata days. And this Hanuman is a superhero. Everybody, most of us, and anyone given an opportunity, everybody wants to become an Hanuman. And many pretend they have already become Hanuman. But I go for another beautiful character, squirrel. That little squirrel. It may appear, if you make Ramayana into a movie, it may appear in 1 or 2 scenes. That little squirrel only tries to do what little it can do. We all can be squirrel, trying to contribute what little we can. If there is a dispute in the family, we can step in. But are we doing it? The broader question is, who is going to nobody is going to heed to me. Nobody is going to listen to me. Then where lies the problem? If I cannot even talk to my children, if I cannot talk to my neighbor, try to help solve the problem. And it's my problem, it's his problem. Who created that kind of a society? We are not created. We are not created it. Therefore, there must be social action. There was a bulwark already available. The family system was available. But today, the questioner, some people said that, there were some responses which say that issues relating to women must be expedited. Why not men? It's an equal country, equal gender. Everyone has got right and court cannot discriminate. Yet we have got separate courts. Therefore, the problem is much, much larger and we cannot be compensated with, it cannot be, you cannot find solution to the problem with such cosmetic discussion. Everyone should strive hard to see how to preserve the institution which the Constitution has created. It has been there even before Constitution in a different way, historically too. But important thing is every such institution is for your benefit and it is for the society to take care of the institution it has created. To sum up, I don't want, therefore, the questions, if you want, again I will say that when you want to, reach destination faster, you need clean roads. And we do not know, somebody said I was drawn to the case deliberately. But I did not ask your opponent to draw you. But having come, I have to hear you both. One may be a fraud. One may be, might have been a wrongdoer. But I will come to know only at the end, not at the beginning. You may know it, but there's justice must be seen to be done equally. And both must have an equal say in that. I have to demonstrate it is done equally. Then the larger issue is about bias, corruption. It is about the choice of person. When the society's morality level, society takes care to preserve the moral values within it, whoever comes to occupy the position of a judge, he is going to be morally correct. He will worry twice, thrice before he try to think of doing a wrong thing. Attitude, yes. So effectively, judges come not from heaven, but from the society. Therefore, I'm not going to wash my hands saying that everything is rosy in judiciary. There are ills. That has to be addressed. But then, by shifting every blame to the judiciary, the society should not think that judiciary is separate, we are separate. Therefore, if judiciary has to do something, it has to take care of itself, and we have no role to play, is something which is constitutionally a constitutional anathema to me. Let's do it, I'm happy. And let's do it, we can. Thank you. And positioning judiciary in Viksit Bharat, just position this idea within your mind. Try to see what best can you do. If a family dispute, I always ask whenever I would have interviewed about 400 plus couple in my chamber. Try to see what best I can do. I always used to ask them, they would have been married for 1 year, 2 years, and fresh from the marriage. They have all been there before me. I asked them only one question. How long your parents are married? The boy and girl invariably would do 25 years, 30 years. Have they ever fought? They said, yes, they have fought bitterly. Then go and ask them why they are living together and you are living separately. See, for nothing we are getting cases. Nothing we are getting cases. Second part, if you go to bureaucracy, they fear, there are two things. Either they are corrupt, inefficient is one thing, as though it is not, inefficiency is just a virtue of the judiciary. It is equally there. The larger, one who wants to decide, they don't want to decide because they are not sure how judiciary will eventually consider that. So they defer taking decision. And when you actually look at it, it is an easy way to pass on the bucks to judiciary. Actually, we are not concerned. On the other hand, we say, you go decide. You have got the power, exercise the power, do that. They don't want to do that. Simple case, bank. I am presiding the IBC, the insolvency banking court business. You go to the banks. Okay, you have got a debt of about 100 crores, a business, some company has a debt of 100 crores. He offers a OTS for about 20 crores. The bank would not accept it these days. Instead, they will go to the IBC and everything, it's a long drawn process after 2-3 years. eventually, after the resolution process, they get the same 20 crores. So why they don't want to decide? You ask the banker, he would say, sir, at 75, when I'm relaxing and watching television and playing with my grandchildren, I don't want CBI or ED to knock my door about something which have happened some 10 years back. I would have even forgotten. Some decision I would have taken. So another burden on the court, what creates a burden on the court is refusal to decide by those who are in law are required to decide issues. We did not create the situation. Somehow, I just want to require each one of you and also to spread the message that we take responsibility for judiciary and try to intervene wherever we can to help people solve the dispute. When you create the problem, when citizens create disputes, they know where it arose. Indeed, they are the best judges to resolve the problem that they have created. They are outsourcing it. I always used to quote one famous quotable quote of Justice Mida of Bombay, Delhi High Court, who in his farewell speech said, I love that. The litigants know the truth and the courts are on trial. This is the truth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I request Sri Srinivasan Iyer to felicitate Justice Seshasari Saiji. Thank you so much for reminding us that a responsible civil society must act as the squirrel in the Ramayana, small yet purposeful, contributing diligently to the larger task of justice and nation building. Thank you so much. We move on to...
And before I move, I don't want to embarrass anybody. 4 of the answers were written by the same hand, but in 2 different ink.
The next discussion is on temples. This discussion reminds us that temples are not relics of the past, but living ecosystems of art, learning, economy, and community. As the panel explores the continuity of tradition, it urges us to see heritage not as preservation, but as participation. I am delighted to invite the panelists, Srimati Anuradha Goyal, Srimati Sai Swarupa Iyer, Shri Pankaj Saxena, and the moderator for this panel will be Shri Ritvik Subramanya, and the topic is Living Temples, Living Traditions.
Namaste to everyone. Before we start the panel discussion, let me ask one very vital question to the audience as to what is the difference between animals and human beings. Yeah. You can answer it loudly, no problem. Pardon? Intellect is somewhat right, somewhat wrong, because most other animals also have intellect. The biggest difference between animals and human beings is human beings know or they build places of worship. No other animals on planet Earth build places of worship or for divinity. So I welcome you all for this interesting session called Living Traditions and Living Temples. Firstly, I would like to ask Pankaj-ji as to why humans really built a temple.
There are two words in Sanskrit. Sanskar, which is called Prakriti and Sanskriti, are called as a binary, where Sanskriti is just you acculturate what is already there in nature. A lot of rituals in both the Vedic period and the other period is to reflect what goes on inside your own and to reflect that process outside, because it becomes easier if you want to concentrate on that process, if you want to visualize that process, then you need some vessel to see what's happening also inside you. That's the process that happens in a yajna. That's the process that happens in a temple. Whatever is happening, the internal process, a Vedic sacrifice is an internal process which is reflected outside. So earlier it was the Vedas, and later on it became, the temples became more the vehicle of this same urge. So it would be a simple answer to that.
I have read somewhere that more than the spiritual evolvement and seeing oneself in the temple, the most important thing was humans suffered from fear and from nature and from fellow human beings. That is the reason that they relied on gods and temples. So fear was the single most reason as to why they built temples. Do you agree with this?
No, not at all. That's what we call the anthropologization of all the non-Christian cultures. Whatever they could not, whatever the Christians could not understand, whatever the biblical people could not understand, they classified it, they were primitive people, uneducated, superstitious people, so Badal Garja dar gaye, Badai dar gaye, and that's why they built temples. That is not at all the reason. That's actually a very, very colonial, very Christian colonial understanding, which sadly, as you said, is taught and written in textbooks. And you might find still textbooks which mention such absurd reasons, but according to me at least, it's patently wrong. There is no truth in it.
What do Anuradha ji have to say? She vocally said no.
Yeah. Not at all. I mean, whatever Pankaj has said is I think all of us believe that it's out of reverence. It is like he said, yatha pinde tatha brahmande. So what you cannot see inside you in the microcosm or in the cosmic version of the universe, you put it in a symbol. And I'll give you an example that all of us understand. Today, if there is our tricolor, our Tiranga Jhanda, it represents India. In the international conferences or anything, we see that tricolor and we know it's India and we respect it. It's just a piece of cloth. But for us, it represents India. Similarly, whether it's in a stone, whether it's in a murti, we symbolize that Brahman, that superconsciousness, for the want of better word, in that, so that we can comprehend it. It doesn't need comprehension. People who are siddhas, they go beyond it. They don't need any of this. But for most of us common people, we need something that we can relate to, something that we can comprehend and converse with. So that is the reason. Second, if you look at how the ancient towns were made. A lot of South Indian villages, if you go to, you have a temple in the center and then you have the town growing around it.
Correct.
And most people, it will be at a crossroad, people will cross, they will not even step into. They will just bow their head, say a silent prayer, move on. A good example is Dwarka, where there's a huge temple and there's a town. Wherever you are in town for 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers, you can see the temple. It's the tallest building. So whatever you do it in the view of the God. You know that the God is looking at you.
whether it is to see that you are doing right or wrong, whether it is to say, I'm there to protect you. So there was a very living relationship that we had with temples. Today we only think of it as an annual ritual to visit it once a year.
So again, I think Pankajji should correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not as, I'm not an expert in the Shastra like Pankajji and not an avid traveler with a keen eye to spot, uniqueness of Kshetra like Anuradhaji. But Nigama and Agama, right? Nigama, which is basically the Veda, is equated to Shiva. And Agama, right, which is the knowledge of constructing temples also, right, that is equated to Shakti. So basically it's not a fear, but it's some kind of a beautiful holding of that energy is the temple. And temple, yesterday Dushyantji spoke about all the Purusharthas, right? And temple is that one unique, which is why it is the center of each township, each ancient township, because it is the one structure which serves all the Purusharthas. It is the center for arts and craft, which is why it serves the Kama. It is the center for Artha. So a lot of trade happens when there is a temple growing there. The trade just shoots up. I mean, I think we saw how the land rates in Ayodhya shot up once the mandir was built. Right? So temple encourages Artha. Of course, the temple stands for Dharma and the temple grants moksha. So that is what a temple stands for, which is why it is the center of each of our urban, so that we don't lose the sight of moksha even when we are in the middle of samsara. So that is the sense of balance that a temple gives.
Okay, now that we know why...
I want to add one thing. She mentioned economy. We had a full session on temple economy. While temple fuels economy, that's not the motive, goal or purpose of temple. The temple is a place to earn punyas. It's not a place to look at from a GDP perspective. India has recently started talking in the language of numbers. And everybody likes to say Kashi Vishwanath used to earn 4 crores and now it earns 200 crores. But where is that coming from and where is that going? Was that money going to 100 odd people or 100,000 people of Kashi and now going to one person? Are we not, by putting ticketing system, are we not restricting the rights of a common Indian who dreams of going to Kashi, and now when he goes to Kashi, he does not even get half second in front of Kashi Vishwanath. So we must keep in mind that temple is to earn punya, not to earn money. Yes, it fuels trade, but that's not the purpose of temple. For that you have your businesses and your jobs.
So, Anuradhaji, I completely agree, but because the government gets very excited with the GDP, I am happy if the government keeps pursuing building those temples which were destroyed. If the economy is the reason, I'll take that as a good enough reason. The rest of the society can do the other
Not
things.
as long as they don't make it a picnic spot where only the rich and famous can go.
That is our responsibility. But I'm saying if the government gets involved because of the economy, that's okay.
Pankaj, where is your and my agency? Now, if a VIP goes to any of these temples, the temple is literally handed over to them. They can be there and everybody is restricted. Why do I need to pay? A temple is one place where everybody should be equal. There should be no VIP darshans. And if you want to enter that temple, please stand in the queue. And honestly, queues are not as long. There is a lot of built up crowd so that economy can be fueled. But anyway.
Let's come back to know about what are the different types of idols in a temple. So we go to a temple, there is a Swayambhu Linga, there is Swayambhu type of idols, then there is Arsha, then there is Daivika, then there is Pauranika, and also Manusha. Man has also started to build temples. So can you please elaborate as to what Swayambhu, can any of you elaborate about what Swayambhu Linga is or Swayambhu idol is, like that of Tirupati or like that of Kashi?
Yeah, Vigraha. Vigraha is a very good word. Icon is nearer. Icon is better than idol, but yeah, idol is completely wrong. So we have started saying Vigraha, and now actually most of the people have also started more in South India, less in North India. But at least the Vigraha, the word is taking on. So Swayambhu, of course, is where the god, the deity, is not sculpted by man, by us, but found or appears in someone's dream, appears on its own. We all have those stories, not just the most famous like Kedarnath, but in every city, in every town, you will find that just like I was born in Gwalior. So just outside Gwalior, there is a hill which was called Hanuman Temple, which is called as Gargaj ke Hanuman. So the story, the legend went that one day, there was a great lightning, some disturbance was going on, and the lightning struck the hill, and out of it, the hill broke into two. Out of it, the figure that appeared looked like Hanuman, and that same night, some priest had a dream. So that's how they got established. So Swayambhu, and then there are many other categories of Dev, Arsh, Puranik. All the rules in the Shastras. So Swayambhu Ling or Swayambhu any Vigraha does not need any consecration. It is good, it is consecrated as it is because the Bhagwan, the deity, has appeared on her own. So it doesn't need any consecration. Only Manush variety. Manush is the temples created by human beings, by kings, by Vaishyas, by people like us, ordinary people, because our consciousness is not at that level. So we have to follow all the rules, follow all the rules of consecration. So Manush and some Puranik also, it is believed that our ancestors, followed all the rules for all the Agam Shastras, and that's how it came to be. Another thing is that Puranas are also as good in instructing that, not just the Agamas. What happened is that in North, Puranas are more famous. Even in the rules of how the rituals should be conducted in a temple. In South, Agamas, the Agamic tradition is more powerful. So, of course, there are more rules, more rituals. But like Vishnu Puran and Shiv Puran, they mention a lot of rules of architecture, sculpture, iconography, and that. So, Puranas also compete with the Agamas. But yeah, Agamas are quite good in it. So, Swayambhu is that. And then there are other categories. With Manush, we have to be really careful. That's why all the rules have to be followed very, very properly, which are laid in the Shastras. If you would like to add something?
Yeah, that's it. So, like he said, Swayambhu has the will of the deity to appear. And he mentioned one story of deity appearing in somebody's dream. Second, very popular story, again, you find an instance almost in every district, if not town, is a cow going and giving milk at a place, and then some deity, mostly Shivling, but some deity appearing out of it. So these are some of the signs that deities give. Sometimes those are hidden murtis. They were hidden by during some invasion or sometime. Sometimes it's just a stone. And if you go especially to Devi temples, in North we call it Pindi. It's just a stone. It has no shape or something. Somebody started worshipping that as a stone, and over time it has gained the power of a deity. So that also happens, that over a period of time it becomes Swayambhu for 2000 years later. And like he said, with Manusha, you have to follow. Then you are selecting a stone, and then now you want the deity to come and inhabit this stone. That's when you have to follow all the processes to invite the deity and be in that murti.
Sometimes what they do is, when a Swayambhu Ling is found, they carve something on it also. So for example, in Mandsaur, that Panchmukhi Shivling is actually, it is carved later on, but that Shivling was found as it is at a nearby place. So that also happens.
Even in Bangalore, Mahalakshmi temple has this very recent Anjaneya, huge Anjaneya murti. It came in somebody's dream saying that this is Anjaneya. They could see a slight impression of Anjaneya, and later they carved it. So that also happens.
So according to Sri Agama, the text says that the body of the divinity, the body of the Daiva, is the Garbhagriha. The Murti or the Vigraha is the Jiva or the soul. And there is something called a ceremonial copper pot which is dug inside the earth, and then they put Navaratna, Navadanyas and other like soil, herbs, and they call it as creation, which denotes creation or prosperity. So these three aspects together make a Hindu temple, and that is why Hindu temples are called as living temples. So can you please elaborate on this? Can any of you three can elaborate?
I have a few words to say, and then of course you can carry on. This is a very important part of temple-going temple tradition. One Kalash everyone is aware of. Kalash is a very important part of the temple that is at the top that we all can see. So that Kalash is not concrete, it's hollow, and there is Navagraha, Naivedyam inside it. So they are put ceremonially there. But there is another Kalash which nobody sees. Underneath the Garbhagriha, just directly underneath the Vigraha, there is another Kalash, exactly in the line of that Kalash. That also has Navagraha, the same thing. Now what is that? The Kalash that is above, it is supposed that when an Archaka invokes the deity, what happens is that that Kalash above is the vessel, vehicle through which Supreme Consciousness, or say Brahma, or whatever word we use for Parashiv or Mahavishnu, he or she descends from above, the Shakti, that Supreme Consciousness, and the Kalash that is underneath, it has the seed of that particular deity, particular Kshetra, and from there consciousness ascends, and in the Vigraha, this ascent and descent of consciousness, that process can be seen. That act of witnessing, that act of ascent and descent of consciousness is actually the act of darshan, and that is the most important goal of going to a temple. This incidentally is also the same process which happens when you meditate. Your Kundalini, which is residing at the lowest chakra, Muladhar, and Sahasrar is the place where the Shakti descends from above. And so, I call it, because we have to really need to encounter the enemy ideologies in this, I call it the clause of infinite compassion of Sanatana Dharma. That if you were to take one step towards the deity, deity takes 10 steps. So if you were to decide, if your guru decides that gives you Diksha and you just sit down for meditation, the Shakti actually literally comes down many levels, takes your hand, pulls you above. And that is the process that happens in meditation. That is this process is described in many, there are many allegories of this all over our Shastras, the Koshas, the Chakras, and this goes on. Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, all of this evolution, involution process goes on, which is also reflected in temple. So I will just end with the sense that the beauty of Hindu disciplines is that no matter what discipline you pick, if you start to go deeper, you will reach the highest stage wherever, because all Hindu disciplines take you towards the highest spiritual knowledge. Something as concrete as a stone. The language of stone and architecture, they managed to make it so abstract that you are elevated to the highest level. So that is the process of it. Anotherji, if you would like.
So there are many ways to explain the Garbhagriha and the architecture around it. One of the things that I would, very simple things, the Kalash below the Murti, if you want to see how it was placed, I would say at this point in time, if you go to Modhera Sun Temple, the Garbhagriha is empty and you can see that pit, where you can still see the pit where they would have kept all the precious stones to concentrate energy there. One way to look at it is Patal, Prithvi and Swargalok. So that temple is something that connects you across the planes, across the lokas. That's one way to look at it. Then in the architecture textbooks, you will find temple itself as the body, where the Garbha comes exactly at the point of Garbha if you're sitting like this. If I have to put it in a nutshell, then Garbhagriha is the nucleus which holds all the energy, which you can take a bit when you visit and spend some time there.
Right. Now that we know about...
I will have to, not exactly. I just want to add to the point because of the importance of the Shikhara, the Kalasha in the Shikhara, right, being the Sahasrara. I think there was a discipline followed in the olden days that the temple remains the tallest structure in the township. Why? Because I don't want my home, my building, my structure to be blocking the drishti of any seeker in the village. And this discipline was followed to an extreme that I was talking to you about the Ramalingeshwara temple in Tadipatri, right? So when you go to Tadipatri is a town near in Ananthapuram district, and when you go to the Bugga Ramalingeshwara temple there is the architecture is just beautiful, typical Vijayanagara, and there is an incomplete Gopuram there. Right? And I asked the guide, maybe thinking this is, one of, maybe it is destroyed during the Islamic invasions. No, he said no. I mean, of course, there are a lot of temples that are destroyed during the invasions. This was left purposefully incomplete. Why? They realized that the completed structure would be taller than the Kashi temple. Kashi Vishwanatha temple. And where is Tadipatri? Where is Kashi? Nobody can even see the Shikhar of Kashi from Tadipatri. But the respect of, given to the Kshetra from by a temple constructed by, this is a Manusha temple, right? And the Manusha temple, the respect it gives to the Swayambhu Kshetra is that, I will not be as arrogant as to outbid the tower of Kashi. So that is the,
Wonderful.
discipline.
So now that we know what is Garbhagruha and how a temple is built, let's come to the various variants in worship. So there is, according to Vishnu Tantra, it mentions 4 different types of worship. One is japa of the deity or daiva, and there is dhyana, continuous meditation. Third is archaka or archana of the deity. Fourth is huta or agnihotra. So according to that text, it mentions that archana by archaka, be it at home or at the temple, is the most best way to worship a deity, worship the god. So can you please elaborate as to why we need to opt for archana when compared to 3 other methods?
Yeah, I have a view of that. I mean, it's not my view, but this one. So, not just 4, but there are 5 practices. The 5 practices, directly connect us to the Panchabhuta. And from, once we get connected or resonate with the Panchabhutas is when we travel beyond the, to the Saguna, Nirguna and, the whole journey there. So, as you said, Archana or Puja, the Shodashopachara Puja, its connection is with the earth, which is why everything, the Vigraha comes from the earth. Whether it's a metal one or a clay one, it comes from the earth. The flowers are grown from the earth. The fruits are grown from the... So everything without earth, you cannot do Archana. So Archana always reminds us of our connection with the earth. And it's the most of the, tangible actions we can do to connect with the divine, which is maybe, which is why it is put in the higher. Next comes the Tarpana. And now, Tarpanas are of 3 kinds. When we say Tarpana, I think everybody remembers the Pitru Tarpana. But there is also a Rishi Tarpana and there is a Deva Tarpana. So, women can do Deva Tarpana and Rishi Tarpana according to my Guruji. And Pitru Tarpana is something only men do. So, Tarpana connects us with the water. Right? You don't need much, you just need a turmeric, this one, and icon, and you just, keep on offering Tarpana. Then comes the Yajna, which is Agni. Right? It connects us to the Agni. Then comes the, before Agni, then comes the Pranayama, which connects us to the Vayu. So pranayama, I know we very symbolically we do it before a puja starts, taking the mantra as the gap and but that connects with the Vayu, and the japa connects us with the Akasha. So we came from the most tangible to the most abstract. So all of them are practiced. And I don't know whether, we can rate and rank them. I'm not an expert on, that topic. But I think when we connect to the earth, I think that is something everybody can connect to. So maybe that makes Archana the most popular.
Actually, different texts have different views also. They class them differently. One thing in Archana is that it also has a very social dimension. For example, there has to be a priest there, so it needs a temple, and temple needs a whole various different dimensions. So ecosystem that develops around it, that just does not develop individual spirituality, but social spirituality also. So that's why it becomes more important for a society.
So, archana that a archak does in a temple, it's done for society actually. For individually, you do at your home, archak does at his home. The archana that a archak does for a visiting devotee is, both of them are actually doing it for a larger society.
So, very simple question. Who is qualified to build a temple? I come across a lot of terminologies like Sthanika, Stapaka, Sutragrahin. So the one who surveys the temple, who surveys the land to build a temple. And there is Vardaki who builds the temple brick by brick. So can you please elaborate as to the different classifications of how Indian temples are built?
I think others would be better qualified for it. But this question that who is qualified to, I think it needs all other... Yeah. So that needs elaboration, but I think they all are needed in that temple building.
So you are talking about a team that needs to build the temple, but to if I have to say a sponsor, who sponsors the temple, that comes from two types of karmas that we are supposed to do, Ishta karma and Purak karma. Ishta karma is your yagya and everything. Purak karma has a lot of these building activities, digging wells, all public service things. So in that category, anybody can build a temple. People have built temples after Ichha Purti as Mannat, as they call it. Maybe what's the equivalent word for we have? Ichha Purti. People have done it victory. After winning wars, they have built temples. They have built temples when something has happened or just when a temple was needed. So sponsor is the first person who will say, I want to build a temple. Then comes in all the technical team of sthapatis and people who build and the kind of temple to be built. So all that is the operational team of temple building, but I think the sponsor can be anybody.
I think I've heard about even courtesans being the sponsors, weavers being sponsors. So a temple happens only if all the classes of the society come together.
In fact, the most beautiful aspect of temple ecosystem is that if you study any festival, you will see a participation by every part of the community. So flowers will come from one community, milk will come from one community, chariot will come from one community. Yes, the basic archak responsibility remains with Brahmins because they traditionally had it, but everything else is divided, and whoever formed the community at that in and around that temple will have some role. Just like our weddings, if you study our wedding rituals also, every relative, every friend has a role to play. Even if it's just a small game kind of a role, it's there. Similarly, in temple rituals, every community was involved in some way or the other. It was both their duty as well as their adhikar. It was both adhikar and kartavya.
Time up? Okay. One last remark, if you could, each of you can speak about your best experience or mysterious experience, mystical experience that you've had with any of the temples in India. One each for one.
It's very, very tough to choose, for a Hindu. But, right now what I remember is Kashi. Because that place, it's just not the, the temple, but it's just the whole kshetra is so much charged. And, I don't have a miracle to, kind of narrate. But something, I visited Kashi in the, pre-2014 days when, things were not really that good, and, a lot of the cleanliness was not exactly the priority at that time. And then we were wondering, and I had visited it that too during Kumbh days, the last Kumbh Mela with my uncle and aunt. So something that struck me, the level of garbage that is piled across the city, and one of the holiest cities, it is our holiest city. I was just struggling to reconciling with, how do we treat our own kshetras, right? But then my uncle told me something. This level of garbage in any other city would have caused a plague outbreak. But Vishwanath ji is guarding the city, and that itself is a miracle. It need not be some supernatural thing happening, but everybody comes to Kashi and goes and remains healthy. In fact, I've heard there is a ashrama or something where sick people come thinking that they'll die, and if they are going to die, let them die. Let me die in the place of Kashi, and they come there and get better and go. Apparently. So.
But I think we should give Kashi Vishwanath better things to do than save us from all this.
I would just say, I will borrow Sandeep ji's line. Please start visiting temples. Please start engaging with them than merely going, saying one namaste, and coming back. If you have to meet people, try to meet them in your neighborhood temple. Try to see that your temple has the garden, the flowers that are offered, or the leaves that are offered to the deity, they are from the temple. Make sure there is a water body. You cannot have a temple without the sacred grove and the water body of the temple. Most of the urban temples do not have that. So see if you can create one and maintain one, however small it is. See, I've started one experiment in, and actually I've not started, somebody else has started, but I've joined them. So there's a group of youngsters. We meet in a Ram temple in Koramangala once a month, and we do bhajans for about 2 hours once a month. See if you can do this. I would love to see those automated drums go out of the temples, or music systems go out of the temples, and we should be the one going and playing and singing, because every time I hear that machine, it tells me there are no devotees around who can play or who can sing. Okay, so see if we can do this, if we can engage at a level. I think our engagement level is very, very transactional with the temple. And till we build that connect, the temples will not come. See if you can, do your voluntary work there. If you are a doctor, volunteer an hour. If you can teach somebody to volunteer an hour. If you can go and tell our people the schemes available with the government in the temple. Because any kind of 1 hour of volunteering activity will bring the community together with temple at the center of it. If you can. Right, sir, but we need it a lot in the younger generation so that they are guided by dharma and they don't discover dharma towards the end of their lives.
Yeah, as to one temple, I think, it's almost impossible to choose one. But I will just try to illustrate one point. For me, the favorite temple is the one just 10 kilometers away from my home, which is not an ancient temple, which is not an aesthetic temple. It has 4 walls, bathroom tiles all over. But it has, just right behind the Bhagwan. But it is a Hanuman temple. And I have never felt more capable of concentrating, of meditating. And I have never felt more peaceful in any other place. So that illustrates the principles, because my guru, he always taught me everything almost I know. It comes from him. When I started stumbling upon, and I am a student of temple architecture, and I've been to more than 1,600 places, and I've seen almost every single most wonderful temple that has ever been created. But even after that, what is the most important intent of a temple? That if there is a deity who is in worship, who is in, the worship continues, Archana continues, if the Shakti of that place is alive, that is the purpose of the temple. It doesn't matter if it's extremely beautiful or if it's ugly. Ugly in quote unquote. So like in Andhra, what's happening right now is that Hindus have now caught up to the game of the church. They are now occupying every single, hill, and they are planting a temple there, which are not, would be aesthetic. It's a very simple structure with all the colors thrown in at once, those temples. But I love those temples also as much as the great temples that are there. So we should not forget the spirit in pursuing the aesthetics. Kumar Swami would teach you that. That's why I just stated this principle through this example. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Saiji. Do we have time for questions?
We are out of time, sir. I apologize. Can we take this offline, please?
For the benefit of everybody, I think they missed on very two important point about temples. You said that temples are Swayambhu or man-made. But there are two temples in Tamil Nadu which were made by Bogar. Bogar is a Siddhi. One is Panani. Another one is near Kodaikanal.
No, we've already spoken about it. Siddhar comes under Arsha, built by Rishis. So we've already spoken about it.
And another point is, she mentioned that, in a village, the building should not be above the cobra. There is a scientific reason. If the cobra is taller and the houses are, smaller, during lightning, the Navadanya inside the cobra attracts the lightning and protects the houses in a temple. That is why they say, Kovil illada uril kudi irukkade. There is a scientific reason for that. I think you missed on that.
Sir. Point taken.
Okay, thank you.
In respect of some of the important temples, there is a saying, unless there is a bulava, you can't reach. This has happened to me, and I see very clearly this. For many years, for many temples, I had tried to go. I had the wherewithal, I had the time, but could not go. And you least expect, and suddenly you land up there. Is it true? This has happened with me in Vaishno Devi, Kashi, Ayodhya, even Tirupati. Tirupati, for 30 years I tried, I couldn't go. 31st year, I landed up by chance. So is it true that unless you are destined, you can't go?
So,
sir,
Tirtha Ksheshra, this is, sorry.
No.
So for Tirtha Kshetras, this is very true. I have, almost everybody in India has experienced this. We also have experienced this. For Tirtha Kshetras.
But, yeah. No, but I am saying, sir, you can never prove it. So every time you manage to reach there, bulawa aaya hai, nahi ja paye to nahi bulawa aaya hai, so you can prove it. So it's a good bhav to have.
Ji, I'll have to interrupt all of you right now. Due to paucity of time, there are flights that authors have to take, and we have the first